It's Julien looks under things with Julien who looks under things, and Nicole is there sometimes, so let's go look under things.
Hello everyone, I am Julien and this is Julien Looks Under Things in Iceland again!
Oh my god, the slug is eating a worm!
So last time we were looking at the bugs and the insects and other invertebrates of the land of Iceland, and I've been finding a lot of other bugs, but also other things have been happening. Back home, Hvalavinir forest has been officially saved. So I am celebrating, but also I need stuff to do. So I decided to push forward my activism in Iceland. I joined the Young Environmentalists of Iceland, Inge Hvalavinir. I'm on the board as the education representative, and there we have been invited to see the premiere of Oceans by David Attenborough. And that was very impressive.
See, I liked the part where the lobsters were these translucent discs that were going like this, and they looked so tiny. Well, obviously they were like little larvae, so they're small. That was really interesting. We were going, oh my gosh, they're so little! And then I also remember the part where, the sad part, when they were going ka-chunk, ka-chunk, and it was like danger music, sad music of like, this is bottom trawling, and you're like, what the actual hell is happening? But you know what's happening, and they're plowing basically a forest, but under the sea, and all the animals are like, ah! And so that made me really sad, but then they dealt with it in a way that didn't make you feel like total crap.
Yeah, because they really worked with hope.
Yeah.
Specifically with bringing communities together. So this is what inspired me to work with you and other friends in Iceland. That is what's going to be happening for this documentary. I want to talk about the water and the critters that live in the water with the help of also other people, because there's plenty of people in Iceland working around water in different ways.
My name is Victor. I work at the Natural Science Institute of Iceland.
So my name's Isla. Right now I'm a student and I'm also working as a tour guide.
My name is Sayun. I am a conservation biologist.
My name is Perla. I am a sustainability architect.
My name is Ragnhildur Katla and I am the PR person for Landvernd, our biggest environmental NGO here in Iceland.
Water is extremely important for the entire world, but what's interesting with Iceland is that it is shaped by the water. We got the glaciers carving the land and creating those rivers. We have geothermal water that is very hot, influenced by the volcanic eruption that is not just shaping things, but powering homes and adding very nice like places where you can swim.
Oh my god!
You have just underground water that is creating those amazing little wetlands. And then of course we have the ocean. So that is surrounded by 3 ocean currents that is bringing in so much fertility to this land. And Iceland relies on that water, not just with the fishing industry, but the tourism industry, because seeing the ocean is just very cool. So that's what we'll do in this documentary. We're gonna learn about the freshwater and the ocean water and see what we can find. The freshwater of Iceland. Like I said before, the sources are the glaciers and the underground water, either just underground water or geothermal activity, but also precipitation. What's very interesting with that is that all of that put together creates very clear water, usually in shallow environments because of the very rocky soil of Iceland. As you can see right here, it is, looks great. It's not just very clean, but also it moves very quickly with the rivers. With all those glaciers, they are creating a lot of waterfalls. You don't have to chase waterfalls in Iceland. they'll find you. What is important with that is that this also creates a lot of wetlands. Wetlands is basically any type of shallow water. I've talked about wetlands before because they are my favorite ecosystem. Wetlands all around the world have a huge biodiversity, including here in Iceland. Because basically the way it works is that you have shallow water that is clear, the sun shines through, and then algae can grow, and then plankton will eat the algae, other animals will eat the plankton, and then boom, an enormous food web will take advantage of that. What's also interesting in Iceland is that we are in an Arctic or Paleoarctic environment, meaning that during the summer, there is basically 24 hours of sunlight. So the plants are getting unlimited sunlight. They can just grow as much as you can. So during the summer, you will have huge boosts of diversity. And that's like that in every environment here. And now in wetlands, both that clear water and all that sun is going to you find a lot of things. In my last documentary, we have talked about the diving beetles and the leeches and things like that, but I've been to Lake Mývatn, where you can really see an enormous amount of things that is just magical.
I got to see the cave char. You can't see the cave char unless you know someone in the research station. But they evolved about 2,300 years ago to be like little and fit in these tiny little caves. And also in Mývatn, we saw a lot of midges, and we saw, I don't remember what it's called in English, but jarðarkan. We saw that, right?
Yeah, that was a godwit.
Yeah, and we saw them getting busy.
They go, oh, no, we saw the grebes.
Oh.
We saw the grebes having fun. Jarðarkan, the godwits were just yelling.
Oh, but we saw a lot of little babies in the lake too. A lot of little babies.
We did. And I will explain the babies.
Yes.
With wetlands both in Canada and in Iceland, birds will love it because we have a lot of invertebrates. Those invertebrates will be food for especially waterfowl. Mother ducks need invertebrates to basically have a source of calcium to create their eggs. And ducklings need a lot of invertebrates because they're high in protein, and protein helps them grow, and they are little babies that need to grow very quickly. So wetlands like that are very vital to research because basically this is where a lot of birds will nest.
And birds indicate how healthy an ecosystem is because, well, they move around a lot with their migrations. They have a very fast metabolism, so they're affected quickly by change. And, well, we see them.
In Mývatn, we especially have the Barrow's goldeneye and the tuft duck. Back to what Nicole was talking about also, another really important part of Iceland is, well, evolution. Like we saw in the last documentary, we talked about how Iceland has a lot of disturbances. Those disturbances are caused by, well, the wind, but also volcanoes. And with Lake Mývatn, 2,000 years ago, there was an eruption that, well, isolated some species of Arctic char in caves. This has happened in other places in Iceland as well, and the Arctic char evolved very quickly to, well, be tiny in those caves. Another fish that shows a lot of interesting evolution in Iceland is the Icelandic three-spined stickleback. Sticklebacks are pretty interesting fish. They're kind of like minnows, very tiny, bit pointy, with some spikes. Oh, a duck. Okay. What's interesting with the three-spined stickleback is that it shows a lot of plasticity and variability. So it's apparently able to adapt its senses based on the conditions of the water. And there's a lot of research going on with that because it is important to understand how animals can adapt here
To the environmental problems that Iceland is facing currently.
Some are directly human-based, others are more indirect and sort of on a global scale, so just pollution by both companies, individuals, and just sort of accidental pollution. We're seeing a lot of energy infrastructure which is related to freshwater, so hydro, which sort of interrupt the natural flow of rivers and lakes.
We also have climate change.
which is adding other changes and making things change quickly. With the freshwater, this is affecting the glaciers.
So the glaciers are really important for just culture, the environment. It's kind of a key part of the Icelandic nature and history as well. And then as well, they're really important for water retention. The rivers in Iceland, a lot of them are just because of the glaciers. A lot of people ski on the glaciers in the winter. So all glaciers pretty much are melting. We're not seeing as extreme of a melt here in Iceland as they are, say, in Switzerland, but everything is melting. The glaciers in the south are melting the fastest. And a lot of those glaciers have volcanoes underneath them. And as the pressure releases, it's possible that the eruption frequencies could increase, and more eruptions means more glaciers melting. So we could have a runaway effect, and it's not going to be very good for us.
But there is a lot of work being done to save the glaciers of Iceland.
In general, there's a lot of monitoring at the Icelandic Meteorological Agency, Veðurstofan. I was helping them with my master's thesis. That's what I was doing, just mapping the glacier outlines, seeing how fast they're melting. And in general, there's a little bit of activism, but generally I've been involved mostly in the monitoring and just kind of seeing what the state is and trying to communicate that to people so they care.
This is also affecting the wildlife here because, well, again, like I said, 24 hours of sunlight, the plants rely on that, the insects rely on heat. There's a whole rhythm that suddenly is starting to be disturbed. So that is also causing problems for the birds. But thankfully, there is a lot of work being done with the research of freshwater.
And my primary purpose there is the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. The WFD, as we shorten it, is this piece of law mainly derived from the European Union law on water protection. This law essentially is just regarding water, so freshwater and coastal water, safety, biogenic and ecological health, and sort of just maintaining good and proper conditions for freshwater ecosystems. So we're talking about lakes and rivers, we're talking about estuaries, groundwater as well, which is very important for public health, and then also coastal waters that are near to shore, so which are very important, especially in Iceland, because we are such a marine-based country, really. So our biggest challenges for a long time, because this law is accepted on Alþingi in the parliament in 2011. It's a European law that was drafted in, I think, 99. And accepted in most European countries by the year 2000 or 2007. I think the latest was for most of the members of the EU. But here, like the legal recognition of it was delayed for about 11 years. Proper funding was allocated at the time, but then it got removed, and well, there were a lot of difficult economic decisions to be made in that time. So recently, in 2024, we got this huge grant from the European Union. There's a special now LIFE project, and LIFE projects are huge. They're a huge deal for conservation movements and the countries that get them. And we got this grant, this overarching grant for the ice water project, so LIFE Ice Water. This has allowed us to work much more diligently with a lot more institutions and corporations, because there are private companies that are getting funding through this as well. And so we've been able to collectively work much more efficiently without having to worry, you know, can we actually work on this next year as well? Is there a future in this? Can we implement these laws? Can we make these changes? Can we ensure that water quality is something that can be monitored and is monitored? What really has been sort of inspiring to me is how interested people are in this project. Not a lot of people have heard about it, but when you mention it to them, or they ask, you know, what are you doing at work? Or when the locals that live close to these water bodies that we are monitoring come talk to us, they are very interested. And they care a lot about fresh water, because, I mean, we can all understand the importance of having healthy freshwater ecosystems and especially non-polluted groundwater. So what's given me most hope is just the interest, especially by the people who this is going to affect the most, so the people who are closest to these environments.
I feel like those of us who live in Iceland, we get to see the glaciers melting, we get to see all these changes, so it's a lot easier to communicate it when you're seeing it all the time over years. But in general, a lot of the tourists visiting here, they don't really understand how big the problem is and why they should be thinking about it when they don't live in Iceland and they don't see these glaciers all the time. I try to weave climate change, environmental issues into what I talk about in my work. As a tour guide, a lot of the time people will come up to me at the end and ask me questions, and then I like to elaborate on that and talk more about it and try to kind of communicate the issues. So I do feel hopeful, first off. And what gives me hope is just the amount of people that do care. Of course, you can feel very apathetic and you can just say, oh, you know, all hope is lost because it's a massive issue and there's so many problems and it looks like it's getting worse.
Bums us out so much, bums us out.
But if you really look into things and you really start watching kind of what's happening, there's so many people on the ground who are trying to change things, and that's really what gives me hope.
And here we have the ocean, which, well, I'm always very happy next to, especially being from the prairies of Manitoba. Anything that has a lot of water or mountains, anything that's not flat, well, I have a good time there.
I mean, the sea is like a beautiful global thing. It's hard to speak about the sea in Iceland and not speak about the sea in a broader context. For me, the sea is like, yeah, it is what separates us or divides the countries and continents, but it's also what connects us. It's the same sea that's in the fjord and the bay here as like in Denmark or Portugal or whatever. The same drop of water is literally traveling between us. I think the problem in Iceland is maybe some sort of disconnect. We used to be, or no, I mean, we have always based our being here on this island on fishing and on the sea. We've based it on the sea. But the sea has always been like it's a dangerous place.
Julien is coming. Julien, careful. Gotta go.
It has taken a lot of lives, so I think we have this collective trauma in our hearts and bodies as a nation. We don't have to go far back. I think everyone living today kind of has a grandfather or a great grandfather that they lost at sea. Like we can all find connections to that.
Maybe it's because it's so inaccessible, like it's cold and it's dark and it's like, yeah, it's really expensive also to get out there. There's not a lot of people that have boats, you know, so we don't really have this connection to the ocean that we should, maybe.
But I think this disconnect is definitely a problem. We used to, you know, everybody used to be fishermen, and now when I went to study to become a captain, and my friends were like laughing at me, like, "Oh, you're like going to the captain school? Like that's so weird. You're so freaky." And I was kind of laughing because I'm from Iceland. Shouldn't we all be sailors? Like since when did that become weird? So I think that's the issue here. And with that disconnect comes the lack of knowledge.
I feel like there's so much misinformation out there. You need to know what is truly the best thing to do for the ocean, and that's one of the reasons that we are making this book on the ocean. So we at the Young Environmentalists we're creating this little handbook on the ocean where everything is backed up by science, so we are always referencing.
We have a huge biodiversity right now just around me. There's cormorants and gulls and eiders and a bunch of birds like that. Oh, it's so cool.
It's out of sight, out of mind. I mean, we see a blue surface, but we don't really realize that it's more than cod down there. We tend to think it's just full of cod.
And like we saw with the freshwater of Iceland, well, there's similar phenomenons that help the biodiversity of the oceans around Iceland. So like with the freshwater where the 24 hours of sunlight is, well, helping the plants grow, it's the same here. all of that sunlight is going to be basically feeding the phytoplankton, so the plant-like plankton, microscopic creatures, and then the zooplankton, the animal-like plankton, tiny little animals, are going to eat the phytoplankton. One of those is the copepod. The copepod is a tiny little crustacean with long antennas and just one eye. It's literally plankton from SpongeBob. And there's copepods everywhere, freshwater, saltwater, you name it. In the northern hemisphere, especially around and in the Arctic and near the Arctic, there's going to be a lot of it. Not just because of the sun, but also because we have the 3 ocean currents that are bringing in hot water, cold water, nutrients. And then of course there's this fresh water of Iceland that's bringing in more nutrients, because whenever freshwater and saltwater meet, it's very good. And that's going to motivate that plankton as well. Oh, more birds. And that plankton is going to be food for filter feeders. So some of the filter feeders that you can see in Iceland, we have the tunicates. They are very funny creatures that just kind of look like weird sponges, but they are actually our oldest ancestors. They are chordates. Their larval form have, well, neurons, brain cells, and then they get somewhere and lose their brain cells and just filter feed. Some other filter feeders will be the sea jellies, also known as the jellyfish. In the Arctic, we can see the lion's mane jellyfish.
Jellyfish! I think it's a lion's mane jellyfish.
And also the moon jellyfish, which are really nice. And then there's also the ctenophores. They are one of my favorite finds in Iceland. Ctenophores look like sea jellies, but they're not really related to sea jellies. They're their own thing. While sea jellies, they kind of move like ctenophores have ciliae, like little hairs that go like the parameciums and stuff. It goes and they're like rainbow in color, and they filter feed the water. And then of course, with the filter feeders, we get some of the biggest animals in the world, the whales.
Shutter is mine, you can hear it.
Yeah, you take good pictures.
Well, I usually put it on manual.
Whales, there's a lot of them around Iceland. You can see a lot of whales around Iceland. It's very useful for the tourism industry because everyone wants to see some whales.
I like that we saw the white-beaked dolphins, the
True.
minke whale, and also the poor puffin who was trying desperately to get away from the crios because the crios were going crio, crio, and then the puffin was just like eating fish and trying to escape while the dolphins and the whales were coming in. So it was crazy. I mean, we saw the puffins and the Westfjords.
Yes.
But just seeing them in the water was really funny.
So yeah, seabirds are also a very important part of the ecosystem. I'll go on a seabird tangent, then we'll get back on the whales, yeah?
Yeah.
So yeah, seabirds also will follow the whales and those things like that. The crias are the Arctic terns, who are fun birds who attack you sometimes. They will spend the summer raising their youngs in the Arctic and the winter in the Antarctic. So they see the sun all the time. Oh. We'll be fine. So anyways, back to the whales. You can see many types of whales in Iceland, like Nicole said, like the minke whale, the white-beaked dolphin, and the humpback whale, which is one of the coolest looking whales because they're very charismatic. And whales are extremely important for the ecosystems of the oceans because, well, they are so big. They eat a lot. They're basically carbon storage. So carbon creates climate change, and well, a lot of plants and animals will simply just store it in their bodies. They eat the plankton that eats the plankton plants, and then it goes in their bodies. And then when a whale dies, they fall to the ocean floor, in the deep ocean floor, where they're eaten by the critters on the deep ocean floor. I wish I could film that. I would love to go in the deep, deep ocean. Now yeah, elephant in the room. Whales, especially the minke whales, are hunted in Iceland. But, big but, this year, in 2025, it got canceled because of a lack of demand. So this means that individually you can help whales by simply just not eating them. So if you've never eaten a whale or are planning to not eat them anymore, good job. Good job. Yeah, boycott works. If someone tells you, it doesn't work, you go, that is not correct. And if you want to, like, live the Icelandic culture food-wise, just eat a hot dog. More serious also and scarier is climate change on the sea life of the ocean. In the tropics, it is scary because of ocean acidification, which is affecting the corals.
Like, I didn't know there were corals around Iceland until like 2 years ago, and I mean, I've been obsessed ever since. I just thought they were like in Australia and in warmer seas, but the sea here is like full of wonders. And somehow, strangely, we seem to not know.
In Iceland especially, the issue is, again, the currents. Now, with the Earth getting warmer and different, it is slowing down the currents, especially the one that is bringing warm water to Iceland. So that means that because of climate change, that might make Iceland colder, especially the water, which will be, well, detrimental to the life around it and on Iceland. And yeah, we do not want Iceland to get colder.
So the challenges are global, obviously. Global warmings, rising sea temperatures, rising sea levels, ocean acidification, plastic pollutions. There's so many problems, but the solutions are like there are plenty.
I did talk about how oceans are a source of food. Now I will talk about how they are shelter.
So here you see a map of actually all these. So these are the 200 nautical miles, and we have Greenland, our neighbor, and the Faroes, so Iceland in the middle. We have 7.5 times more sea than land in Iceland. We have 750,000 square kilometers of sea and 100,000 of land. So in that vast ocean of ours, it's actually pretty full of coral. And it makes sense because those are the homes of the fish. So we're a fishing nation. The fish must live somewhere, and that's where they do. So you see all these little icons and dots here around the map. So these are places where the Marine and Freshwater Research Institute, Havro, has been with their research vessels, sunk a camera on a tripod, taken a photo and confirmed that there's coral. And the different icons show the different kinds. So you can see that the ones that form coral reefs, they like to be here in the south, in the bit warmer parts, and then there's a lot of cauliflower corals and sea pens in the top, in the north. In Iceland there is this narrative about Iceland that we have a really good and close connection to our nature. And I think one quirky, like, practical thing that has maybe a big role in that are these posters that everyone has in their house. So we have the fish of Iceland, flora of Iceland, birds of Iceland, and the whales posters. And kind of like, you know, everyone has one of these at home, or their grandmother does, and you're kind of raised on the toilet looking at the flora and like choosing a favorite flower as a kid. So I thought it would be just a logical continuation that we would get corals of Iceland. So I got a grant to do that. It was a 3 months project. I started interviewing the guy who makes these illustrations, Jón Baldur Hlíðberg. And he told me that making one fish takes him 3 weeks. So I was already kind of doomed with 78 corals and just 3 months to go. But he also told me that when he's drawing them, he usually has the thing, like the animal or the plant, on the table and draws it like directly from looking at it. And then he uses photographs just as supplementary material. With corals, that's obviously not possible. I cannot just go and get the coral at 1,000 meters depth. So I figured I would start just trying to draw them from photographs. Yeah, I started drawing this one, and I was kind of drawing it as if it were a dandelion or just a little flower. And then as I read about it, I realized this one is actually 6 meters tall, so it's more like a palm tree. And that's kind of the issue with photos in the sea. You have no scale to them.
Whoa, like so
So that became, another issue. If I would have the corals, if I could get them from the sea, I mean, they would look like this. Like they don't look nice when we've taken them up from the gravity, like the lack of gravity there's in the sea. Then I visited the Hafró and the Nature Conservation Institution. They have some samples that have come up in their nets in Hafró, and then the Náttúrufræðistofnun has even more, but they're literally like in a storage room in a car park basement in Garðabær, which I find a bit insane because they're like incredibly beautiful and nobody like sees them. They're just tucked away. I wasn't allowed to take them out of the building, but it was super helpful for me to see their scale. So I took their blueprint on the Xerox, on the copy machine. And then I kind of ended up using that as my representation because I think drawings and illustrations are super helpful, of course, but it's kind of different with the birds and the flora and so on, where people have actually seen that flower or seen that bird, they know it exists here. Then a drawing can be a very good way to represent it. But with the coral, when people don't even know that they're here, I think it's important before representing with drawing, because with drawing it's still fictitious, but if we look at these scans, it's more like tangible, you really see it's there. And they also show you the scale correctly, so these are true to scale. Then I selected 32 corals together with Hafró that would go on that poster. So here this is a collection of just scans of these that would then help if someone were to draw them at some point. What I also learned is that they don't have names in Icelandic yet. And we have like really beautiful names for birds and flowers and whales and so on. So that's like obviously another task that we need to venture onto. I've been gathering proposals from people.
The main source of shelter in around Iceland is kelp, big algae. All around me right now, there is kelp. Kelp is pretty neat. It's pretty fun to watch. There are some that are very big, some that are smaller, but basically they will be shelter for many animals, shelter for a lot of invertebrates. Around kelp, you can find segmented worms. So Annelida in the ocean, they are funny looking because they sometimes have legs and little appendages. I love finding segmented worms around the ocean. I have found also flatworms. Flatworms are pretty interesting. They're the ones that can regenerate very well. And I've seen crabs around the kelp. The crabs are very important because they are a source of food and they are also very cute. Unfortunately, some of them are also invasive.
So the rock crab was brought here in probably 90s. In 2006 or 2005, they started like studying it because it had spread out, and it was actually here in Hvalavinir that it first like came probably and started spreading out. It's very it's pretty small. It's a small crab, so it's not really like probably invasive in other areas, but here it is, and it's mostly because of the other crab species that are there before, so it does outcompete them, and that has been shown now in Hvalavinir. When it comes to the ocean, I know that in Náttúrustofa Suðvesturlands, they're working on invasive species in the ocean that are being brought into Iceland with ballast water. We have, at least on land, we have 3 species of plants, 2 plants and 1 moss species that are invasive, considered invasive, but we do have more species that are possibly invasive. We don't really know. There hasn't been a lot of study. There has been some study, but the legal framework isn't keeping up, so we haven't really been doing great when it comes to that.
All those invertebrates are going to attract fish. So there's going to be a lot of fish around Iceland because of the kelp, and those fish are also important to, the fishing industry, and the kelp helps to store carbon. Those fish are also eaten by seals. There's some seals around Iceland that are very cute. But now, that kelp, because fish need it so much, it is, also in danger. Because with fishing, you have bottom trawling, like Nicole explained at the beginning of the documentary, which is, ripping down all those habitats.
So Iceland relies heavily on the ocean, and we are very focused on fisheries. So like we kind of look at the ocean through the lens of fisheries, which is probably not good in most cases. Yeah, I feel like the biggest issues are the government. We don't really have the legal framework to support the ocean, like ocean conservation, and we don't have a lot of marine protected areas and stuff like that, so.
Also, overfishing proliferates urchins, sea urchins, that are eating the kelp.
Because the fish eat the urchins, which keeps them under control from eating the kelp, which is the fish's home.
So there's a lot of cycles of just destruction happening. And if we want to help the kelps, well, like we saw in Oceans by David Attenborough, we just need to protect 30% of our oceans.
I did my thesis about marine protected areas. I drew a proposal for how Iceland could meet the 30 by 30 goal about protecting at least 30% of land and sea by 2030. We're doing quite well on land. We've protected about a quarter of our land, so 25%. But at sea, we're still at a 0.07%, which is bizarre. I mean, there are more areas that we have protected, but just not by law or nature conservation law. So we kind of have to call them what they are. But even though we did, we would only get up to like a maximum of 5%. So we need like actually 2.5 times Iceland in size of marine protected areas. So I used architecture as a tool to spatially draw it, because I think it's hard for people to imagine how to get there from the 0.07 up to at least 30 by 2030. That's like basically tomorrow. So I decided to try and draw a proposal.
The government has they aspire to actually protect 30% by 2030, which is a very big goal.
The reason I keep being stubborn and being like bringing architecture into the picture and bringing art is simply, I mean, I went to the COP in Glasgow some years ago, the climate COP and then the biodiversity COP, and I think there I just really learned and understood hands-on with like these millions of people around me all working on this, that we need everyone on board.
It's so amazing how the people I know that are working on the ocean, they get there from all directions. So as for me, I went into conservation biology. My friend is more into arts, and then I know another one that's an architect, and they all work on the ocean as well.
I mean, what gives me hope is just the blue sky outside. I mean, it's not all over yet. What gives me hope is when I look at the scientific evidence, it says there still is time. It gives me hope when it gave me a lot of hope going to those conferences and seeing the amount of people that's there fully dedicated to do their share and to solve the problem.
So as we saw, water is very important in Iceland, both freshwater and salt water, for basically, well, carving this area and creating it, for bringing in the life, and for supporting the population. It's also good for our well-being, and it stores carbon to help against climate change. Now, we did see that there is a lot of dangers and issues regarding it, but we can all do something in many different ways.
I think the best thing you can do for the environment is just to, go for a walk and take your friends. So maybe your friends aren't that familiar with their closest environment. So Hvalavinir here, where we are, this is a great outdoor area which is full of life, and just bringing people into nature gets them a lot closer to it than necessarily hammering on them about recycling or something.
And if you want to bring people with you and along with you, I think you need to have joy. I think no one is going to listen to like a grumpy pissed person that hates what they do. So for me, it's about finding what you think is fun. And I mean, we can connect any and every discipline to the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. And that's what we need to do. Because I think it's also you know, we have the scientific evidence, and like the science is like, they all agree. We know what needs to be done, but scientists, they weren't trained to design how we're going to do it, for example. But that's what architects do. They design like how we're going to live, how we're going to be as a community. And artists, they kind of mess with our minds sometimes. They can like wake up new ideas and spark joy and spark interest, but also provoke you. And so I think, yeah, we need all of it, and in all its diversity.
So really, it's all about being open-minded. Not everyone can, you know, go to university and afford to move abroad, but really, it's all about learning. You can find a lot of really good stuff on YouTube as well, and just looking these kinds of things up and trying to talk to other people about them.
And that's exactly what we need here, probably, like to get closer to the ocean. What I would say is just please educate yourself. Be careful where you get your information from. Always try to go to the source and try to see if it's from a reputable science.
I see so many great people our age, great people even younger, that are doing so much for the environment, for our future. And I feel like many of us realize how important our future is, and that the environment and our nature, how important it is for our future. So I am really hopeful that together we will kind of combine our forces to try to protect the future. Right now I'm making a documentary about young environmental activists. And activism can be so different. It can be many things. So this documentary will be about what environmental activists do and what is it to be an activist. There are a lot of difficulties, and it can mean very different things for everybody, really. But there are challenges. Being young, the challenge is often not being heard. But there can also be a challenge in like the noise all around us, how we have things screaming at us every day, all the time, and it can be hard. It can be hard to be trying to lend your voice to nature and environmental causes when everything kind of feels crazy around you. So that can definitely be a challenge.
We can also do like a disaster utopia practice where you imagine it all goes to hell. I mean, that just means that we're gonna have a shitty life and then eventually we're gonna die, but like the earth won't mind, the earth will like flourish again, there just won't be humans. But that's not hope, that's very pessimistic, sorry.
You do matter, and everything you do matters. So trying, just going in, maybe baby steps at first, just trying is already doing very good.
So continue, everyone, to help your corners of the world. And if you haven't, find your own aquatic or terrestrial beautiful area of the world that you hold dear. Remember, we can't do everything, but everyone can do something. This was Julien with Julien Looks Under Things. I hope you have a good day, everyone.